Shalom.
Shalom.
Thank you for the invitation. So my name is Eitan Bar. I'm coming from Israel, where I was born and raised almost 40 years ago, in the city of Tel Aviv. My Jewish mother always said I can do anything I want in life, as long as it's a lawyer or a doctor. But she never said what kind of a doctor. And trust me, Christian theology was not on her mind. Today I want to talk to you about Israel, antisemitism, and evangelism. I think you all will agree with me that if a Christian reads the Bible, the scriptures, he quickly finds out that most events takes place in Israel. Jerusalem is mentioned over 800 times in scriptures. Israel is mentioned over 2,300 times in scriptures. Almost all of the characters of the Bible, mainly in the New Testament, are Israeli Jews like me. Yeah. Think about the book of Acts, the very first church in history, almost exclusively Jews. So you would think that today everyone in Israel is probably a Christian Jew. In Israel today, only 0.4% believes Jesus is the Messiah. That is a drastic change. Quite a few historical, religious, and political explanations for that change. Yep. However we can explain it, there is a spiritual reality behind it. Maybe even two. One on our side, the Jewish people, and another one, let's call it a demonic resistance. Let's discuss us first. In Romans chapter 11, verses 25 and 26,
I do not want you to be unaware of this mystery, brothers. A partial hardening has come upon Israel until the fullness of the Gentiles has come in. And in this way, all Israel will be saved.
And it seems many get confused by all Israel will be saved. They think that every single Jew from the beginning of time will be saved. But that is not what Paul is saying here. Last week we celebrated Passover in Israel. When we celebrate the Exodus, we say that all Israel left Egypt. Do we mean that every single Jew that was ever alive came out of Egypt? Of course not. We are thinking of a very specific time in history. In that same way, Paul says that in the future there will be a time that all of Israel combined together will come to know the Lord. And it might be the only time in history that you will see a whole nation at the same time, everybody inside it coming to know the Lord. When? One hint we already read, until the fullness of the Gentiles has come in. Today, Christians number 2.4 billion people worldwide within 7,163 people groups. I don't know if it's fullness of the Gentiles, but it sounds a lot. Second hint comes from Jesus himself just before his crucifixion in Matthew chapter 23, verse 39. For I tell you, you will not see me again until you say, blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord. So Jesus is telling Jerusalem is not coming back again until we, Israel, say, welcome back. And this goes hand in hand with what we just read in Romans chapter 11. So I don't know when it will happen, but it doesn't sound very far away. It seems obvious that there is a very strong connection between the coming of Jesus and the acceptance of Israel of the Messiah. But Israel accepting Christ is not going to be easy, because with respect to the rest of the world, we are not like anybody else. And it's not a positive thing. In the book of Exodus, and much later in the book of Acts, we, the nation of Israel, are described as stiff-necked people. From Exodus to Acts, you have 1,500 years where we are stiff-necked. As an Israeli Jew myself, let me admit and tell you, we are still very much stiff-necked today. Even killing our own Messiah repeatedly for 2,000 years now. But the real story here is not even about Israel. It is about the God of Israel. What do I mean? When I grew up in Israel, I played a lot of computer sport games. When you play soccer or any other sport on the computer, you are the coach, and you get to select the team you want to play with. Most people will select the wealthiest team, with the biggest squad and the best players, like Bayern Munich or Barcelona. And then it's quite easy to win every single game and take the championship. But then it's not really about you as the coach. It's about the team, the players, and the big budget behind it. If you want to prove that you are the best coach, you need to pick the weakest team with the smallest squad where all the players are stiff-necked and have no budget because they are slaves in Egypt. And with them, win games and win the championship. That is why God is the greatest coach of all. Because he's going to win the game against Satan with us. Deuteronomy 7:7, it was not because you were more in number than any other people that the Lord set his love on you and chose you, for you were the fewest of all people. Fewest and slaves. But from our rejection of Christ, because we are stiff-necked, salvation came to you. Do you understand the logic behind this? Isn't it a bit of a strange logic? I think you have to be an Israeli to understand that logic. If we accepted Jesus as our leader, but we would never ever share him with you. That is probably why we should be the very last ones to finally accept him. So that's our story. But I told you there is also a demonic reality behind the scene. Now, obviously, Satan doesn't want anyone to be saved, but it's not like he really cares about you. He's only using you in his great game of chess against God. It is in Satan's best interest that we Jews will never believe in Jesus. Because as we saw, when we finally do believe in Jesus, it means checkmate and game over for Satan.
Ja, sjakkmatt, det er over og ut for Satan i det øyeblikket.
We also say shachmat. So I believe that Satan is behind the other reason why we Jews find it very easy to reject Christ. And if I told you Judaism is stiff-necked, Christianity can be stiff-necked as well. In Judaism, there is a lot of preconceived ideas about who Jesus is, and all of them are negative. And there is a reason, which we get to experience for 2,000 years now. And that is anti-Semitism or anti-Judaism in the name of Christ. Time is very short, so I'm only going to choose a few examples of anti-Semitism in church history in the name of Christ. Let's start with some church fathers. Saint Gregory of Nicaea, he said, the Jews are a brood of vipers, haters of goodness. Saint Ambrose said, God always hated the Jews. It is essential that all Christians hate them as well. Have you heard about the Council of Nicaea? Constantine invited bishops from all over the Roman empires, but forbid those with Jewish background to come. In that council, they changed the Sabbath day to Sunday and systematically removed anything Jewish from Christianity, forbidding to even have a meal with Jewish people. About 1,000 years later, First Crusade, mass slaughter of Jews by the Crusaders, and when the Jews hid in synagogues, they would be burned alive. Inquisition and exile. The Inquisition took place from 12th to the 15th centuries, where the Catholic Church would force Jews to convert to Christianity by means of torture. And if a Jew would convert, they would give him a new nickname, Marrano, which means a pig. Jumping forward, Martin Luther. No doubt he brought a great reformation to the church, but at some point he also became very anti-Semitic. In year 1542, he wrote a book on the Jews and their lies. And in the book, Luther encouraged Christians to burn down synagogues and Jewish schools. He wrote, their private houses must be destroyed, burn their synagogues, suggesting to kill Jews who are not willing to convert to Christianity. He wrote, we are at fault in not slaying them. The pogroms took place from the 19th to the 20th centuries, where Christians would put on fire synagogues and Jewish stores. Now, when in the pogroms and in the crusades you burn down a synagogue, do you know what else you burn? You also burn the Hebrew scriptures, the Old Testament. And that symbolically represents a lot of the way some Christians saw the scriptures and Judaism. Holocaust. In 1933, Martin Luther's wish finally came true. When Adolf Hitler met with Bishop Berning, he said, "I am thereby doing Christianity a great service by pushing them Jews out of schools and public functions." We cannot ignore the fact that Christian anti-Semitism is the stage for the Holocaust. And that is not even my statement. Archbishop Robert Runcie admitted, "Without the poisoning of Christian minds through the centuries, the Holocaust is unthinkable." My grandparents were in the Holocaust. The Nazis took everything from my family and became very poor. At some point where they took my grandmother to a camp, they started to torture her. They tied my grandmother. They pulled the nails out of her fingers. They told her that that's because she rejected Christ. Obviously, that is nonsense, but this is how we Jews understand Christians and Christianity. Also in the Holocaust, during Christmas time, my grandparents and other Jews would hear the Nazi soldiers celebrating Christmas with singing Christmas carols. How distorted is that? But now you understand why, with the re-establishment of the State of Israel in 1948, all over Israel, you had about 30 Jewish believers in Jesus. We Jews automatically associate Christians with all the horrible anti-Semitic things that happen to us. So it's very easy for us, whenever, let's say, a Christian missionary comes to Israel, to label him, put him in a box, and ignore his message. We might smile and be friendly. For 2,000 years, therefore, the gospel was kept away from us Jews.